I've got these little dumplings that I've made, these little jiaozi knit, and I wanted to do a quick how-to, because these are pleated. There's two different kinds of pleats, a box pleat and a regular pleat. There's actually a slightly bigger one. The little ones are 64 stitches around, the big ones are 72 stitches around. I'm using a cable needle. If you've actually got a set of 5 double-pointed needles, you can use just the double-pointed needles. You don't need a spare needle. And a spare double-pointed needle in a smaller size, the same or smaller size, will also work. But in this case, I thought it would be clearer if I used a cable needle to demonstrate it. If you have a set of only 4, you will probably need the cable needle. But if you've got a set of 5, you should be okay. To make the dumpling, what I did was I started with the lighter circular cast-on with 8 stitches. And then I worked around, and then every other row I increased 8 stitches evenly around. And I used the lifted increase so that it wouldn't create a hole. But you can use any increase you like. So basically every other row I increased 8 stitches evenly around, and then I worked the last row after the last increase. So I have 16 stitches per needle in this case, 64 stitches. These dumplings have 2/3 of the stitches on the plump side. This is 2/3 of the stitches. This is 1/3 of the stitches. How I do that is I overlap. Oh, these are all box pleats. I want to actually demonstrate this one, which is little standard pleats. Okay, so what it is I have these pleats forming, but at the same time I'm also working the other side. And it's simpler than it sounds. It's a little fiddly. What I do is, first off, because there are 64 stitches and that won't divide by 3 evenly. Yeah, no, it won't divide by 3 evenly. It divides into 60 and then you have 4 extra. So what I need to do is I need to take down 4 stitches, which means there's 2 stitches on the edge here, and 2 stitches on the edge there. Actually, it's not here, it's actually over here. That need to just be worked in ribbing. And because I'm closing it up into a dumpling, like a turnover, I need to take some of the stitches from this needle and then some of the stitches from the needle I just worked off of. So I'm going to do that first off. I'm going to knit one off of the first needle, and then I'm going to switch and purl one off of the last needle. And then I'm going to pick up that first one again. Now I'm doing 4-stitch pleats. So this is where I pick up my cable needle, or a spare double-pointed needle, or basically anything. 1, 2, 3, 4. I slip those onto that needle. I untangle my yarn. Okay. What I want to do is overlap these two. These first 4 stitches and these next 4 stitches get overlapped like that. And then these 2 are worked together, and then these 2 are worked together, and then these 2 are worked together, and then these 2 are worked together. But each of those has a purl from the back needle in between each of them. So I knit this one and this one together, like so. Slip them both off. Okay. And then nice and tight, I purl one off the back. Okay. Do that again. Knit the 2 together. Pull them off. And then grab that back needle, purl one off the back. See what's happening here? It's creating a fold, little pocket. Okay. I keep doing that until all of the stitches are worked off that spare needle, that cable needle. Knit the two together. It is not actually as fiddly as it looks. Okay, it is fiddly. It is not actually as fiddly as it looks, it's just I'm juggling this between the camera and the... Okay, I lost the cable needle there. But if the cable needle wants to fall out, or the spare needle wants to fall out, slip that last stitch onto the needle before you switch to the back, and then work it as a slip knit. And then always alternating with one off the back. Okay, so that's one pleat. See that? You have these stitches on here. It's not as many as you start with. There's 4 missing because they're worked together. There's a fold in the fabric. Last stitch, as you can see on the needle, is a purl. So then these get worked. Now I want to do another pleat. Oops, picked up the wrong thing. Another 4-stitch pleat. So I want to take off 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now there's not quite enough stitches on here, so what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to put it on to this one, so there are fewer needles flopping around and getting in the way. One of the things to note is that if I'm doing a box pleat and I want 2 pleats to meet like this, see how they meet? This one is folded over this way and this one's folded over this way, that I would hold this in the back for the next one, and that would cause the fold to meet like that. But since I want the pleat to no, if I want the pleat to go in the same direction, instead of a box pleat, I am going to hold it once again in front, like so. Okay, get these out of the way. So once again, the last stitch was a purl, so you know to work off of the needles in front. Hold the 2 superimposed so the first 2 can be worked together. Knit together the first 2 stitches. Pull them off. And then purl one off that back needle. Then knit 2 off that. And then purl 1 off that back needle. Knit 2. And if you want to, slip that last stitch there so it won't fall out. Purl off the back needle. And then slip knit these together so that the one on the right is the one on top. It's a tiny visual difference, but I personally prefer it. And then purl the 2 together. Keep going like that. You see there's 2 pleats formed. Keep going like that for the rest of the stitches, but before you do the last one, leave it open and stuff it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this and come back to you when I'm ready to stuff. Okay, I am down to the last stitches, and you'll notice there are 4 on my cable needle. I've moved them around, so there's 4 and 4, and then the spare 2. And this is the back needle, cable needle, and this will be the last pleat, like so. And this is the pouching out of the dumpling. And these are the stitches remaining. And it's time to stuff it. So you really do need to leave enough of a hole to stuff it. So I like to do it on the last pleat. This is my little sachet of catnip in this case for my cats. I use a piece of tissue paper here. As I might have said, I don't remember where I'm editing this. But I have a bit of tissue paper or a piece of fabric, whatever you like. A little bit of fiberfill to give it some fluff, or a bit of fleece would work too. And then just stuff it in there. Tissue paper is a little slippery. Dumpling is a little bit small. Don't overstuff it. You want the corners to remain kind of limp and small. So think of it as a meatball in a wrapper, because that's what a dumpling really is. It's a meatball in a wrapper. Or if it's vegetarian, it's a something ball, a vegetable ball in a wrapper. But anyway, okay, there you go. A nice plump little dumpling. The corners are still pretty limp, but not really packed. But it does kind of go into the corners a little bit. And then you do the last pleat to shut it up. So again, you hold it in front. And hold it in front. Knit these two together. Avoid catching any of the wrong bits of yarn, or in this case splitting a stitch. There. Okay. Pull them off. And then work. Stitch off the back needle. Again, avoiding splitting the stitch if at all possible. Okay. Work two together. Purl one. Knit two together. I think I've managed to split this yarn I don't know how many times. Not really that splitty, it's just a lot of tension on it right now. Okay, two together. I'm going to slip that one onto that back needle so I can drop this cable needle as it's annoying me a little. And then purl one. Then, since this is the last one from the other needle, slip, slip, knit. Purl one. Don't lose it off the needle like I just did, but purl it. Knit one. And yeah, it got stretched out, but that's okay. Purl one. Okay. That extra bit of tension there at the end really stretched that one out, but it's fine. Alright, so now the dumpling is flat. Slip the first stitch, and if it's a purl, which this is, purl it, and then knit, and then purl all the way back. And this will keep it looking like stockinette on both sides and flat, no curl. Okay. Worked all the way to the end, so it's one row of ribbing. binding off. This is the other thing I do to just a fine little detail. What I do is I slip, knit, bind off. So what I'm doing, I'm going to slip, knit one stitch. If I can. Slip, knit one stitch. Slip, knit the next one. And this has nothing to do with being a combined knitter. And then I'm going to pass the first stitch over the second one like a regular bind off. What this does is this overlaps your ribbing, your knit one, purl one ribbing, pulling those two columns together, and then bind off nice and tight in a regular bind off. If I was doing this from the other side, if I had made this lip here longer and I was doing it from the inside of the dumpling, I would be doing it purlwise. But since I'm doing it from this side, I'm doing it knitwise. Because I want the knit stitch, is the ribbing, to be on top. And I want the purl bump to form on the inside of the, oops, forgot to bind it off, purl side of the, to form on the inside of the dumpling. And keep doing this until it's done. Okay. Alright. There you go. Bound off the last stitch. Break the yarn. Pull it through. And then weave in this tail. And here again is why a sharp needle helps. I just sort of sink it into the edge, like so, because it's not really going to go anywhere. And then I just sort of pass it through the body of the dumpling a few times. And then, you know, don't pull it too tight so that it creates a dimple, but just do this a few times. It doesn't have to be invisible. It doesn't, well, it will be invisible, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It's on the inside, nobody will see it, except when you pull out a little bit of catnip. And then what I do is once I've gotten tired of doing this, I trim it very close to the surface, and then I just sort of wiggle it a little bit and it'll pull the remaining end in. But that's basically it. That is a dumpling. Oop, take off my stitch marker. Trim that bit and it's done. Go like this, and you go like this, and you get very hungry and you wonder why you didn't spend the afternoon making edible ones instead of the ones your cats will play with.